Hey, what's up, Rattler? So that is not the middle of winter out there. That's actually the middle of November here in Wisconsin. And you know, it's been a long time since I've actually been here at the Zilla headquarters. And you know, you guys may remember a couple of years ago, I got a tour of the Zilla headquarters here in Wisconsin with Ryan McVeigh. Well, I'm here with Ryan again, and he's gonna show us some of the products that Zilla is coming out with, and then we're gonna see some of the coolest reptiles you guys have ever seen in the Zilla Lab.
I'm Dāv Kaufman, and I tour the world to see how reptiles are living in the wild. And while I'm at it, checking out some of the most amazing facilities and reptile expos as well. It's all about learning, appreciation, and conservation. So come with me and join my reptile adventures.
At Zilla, we are dedicated to the innovation of caging, lighting, and equipment solutions that provide proper husbandry for your pet's long and happy life. To see our entire catalog, visit zillarules.com.
Ryan McVeigh. All right, so we're back here in the back of the testing labs of Zilla, and there's a couple of new products that Zilla has out that we just have really got to see. So we're gonna take a look at all these innovations here. Let's just start with number one here.
Yeah, so what this is we launched a couple years ago our rock layers, and what the rock layers are is an updated way to look at human hides. Typical human hides that are out there, whether we make them ourselves or other companies out there make them, they put a hole in the top, which doesn't really make a good hide because you put a skylight in it, and doesn't really hold humidity because it's a chimney for the humidity to escape.
Exactly.
So we redesigned them to have a side entrance, to hold humidity better, to give a better dark hiding spot for the animals, and then it's got a good texture on the outside to help them shed their skin. The problem was we didn't have one big enough for a lot of the ball pythons that people keep, or small boas, or adult corn snakes. This is that. This is the next one. This is the extra large rock layer. So this will hold, you know, your small ball pythons, small boas, adult corn snakes can hide in there. And it has the same things as the other one does. So it has the ramp coming up into it, which helps hold that humidity in better. So this is the entrance, and then it's deep enough to have dirt or bedding for them to lay eggs, you know, moss or anything like that. And then it's painted black on the inside, and it has this wall, which is important. So what happens is light can only move in a straight line. So as light comes through here, it can only get to there. That means that this area is going to be completely dark for your animal to hide in, and it's really going to provide it with that small area for it to hide, that small little den.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we all know we need human hides, but nobody's really taken a look at how can we make them better with this design. So what we have is this deep top, and what happens is your humidity rises, hits this top, cools down, and then you get a natural convection inside here that keeps the air moving, and you actually hold your humidity a lot longer without it molding or going bad. All the animals in the lab basically live in these things.
And it's aesthetic.
Yeah, and it looks nice. So you can kind of hide it into a cage really easy. It'll naturally blend in. It's easy to open up the lid and take a look at them. And then again, it works as an amazing lay box for a lot of species. So most of our reptiles in the lab actually lay their eggs in these, and we're able to get them out later. And if you think about it, ball pythons really like a tight space.
Absolutely.
You're looking at something that's about this big. So you're talking easily 12 to 1,500 grams of ball python jammed into that hole.
Absolutely, with the cover on, sure.
Yep. And that's what they're gonna like. They're gonna like that nice, tight, dark space. So these are coming out with waterfalls. So if you guys have seen the new spring cave that came out, it's awesome kind of piece of decor that also allows your animals to drink from it. And while we were making that, we kind of sidetracked to some waterfalls and thought, everybody kind of has them. How can we do something different? And some of the big problems I see with waterfalls are, one, they have big holes in the back, so they're easy for animals to get up inside them, and as soon as they do, they're a nightmare to get out of it.
Right.
And if you have to treat the animal or check on its health, I've had to break them open before to get my animals out, and that is infuriating. The other thing is it allows crickets and bugs and things to get in there and just sit in that water, and you don't see it because it's underneath it.
Exactly.
So that beautiful waterfall is actually rotating sewage through your entire tank.
Exactly right.
And you want to stay away from that. So there's some big key differences with these. Is one, the only hole to the reservoir is a tiny cord port in the back that crickets can't even get into, maybe tiny ones, but they're not going to be getting in there and dying and drowning underneath it and getting it all nasty.
Exactly.
And the other part is, if you actually look at this, we can take this lid off. The only entrance down into the bottom outside of here are these tiny drilled holes. So that helps keep out debris as well as keeping the animal from getting down inside of it. This one over here is really small. We wanted to just add something small that looks really pretty, would kind of add to the aesthetics of your tank. And then for the bigger one, we kind of looked at it different. When I build my own waterfalls inside my tanks, I love having slate rock kind of setting over itself, so it gives you this kind of waterfall river.
Absolutely.
And I found my animals sit in it and let that water kind of cascade over them. So I was like, well, how can we design that into that? And that's what this is. So it comes down out of here, comes into like a small puddle, and then that runs down this river down to the end. So you have this riverway where your lizards or your frogs can sit and just sit in a running, moving water. And especially for species of dart frogs that may need running water to activate that breeding, that is a way to do it. By putting that in there, they have that running water without you having to build this huge river system into it.
Exactly, or for specialized lizards that will not drink from standing water. They will only drink from moving water.
Yeah, and then this is going to increase the humidity in your tank, and the reservoir is about 2.5 to 3 inches deep, and it's the whole size of that, so that water is going to last a really long time. We also worked really hard to take a look at the pumps. Another big problem is, to say you're out of town for the weekend and it's we're in the upper Midwest and it's winter, whether we like it or not.
Yeah,
but it's starting to get dry, so these dry out really fast. The pumps that we use in there, when we tested them, we actually tested them for 2 weeks bone dry on a shelf running, and to make sure they wouldn't burn out. So these can go for up to, we stopped testing them after 2 weeks, and none of the 12 we tested burned out.
Wow.
So it's going to be a pump that if it goes dry, you're not going to come home to a fried unit you have to replace.
All right, so one of the things I love about Zilla is all of the innovation in lighting and heating solutions. Every time I come over here, there's always something new that frankly blows me away. So what do we have here?
So as a lot of your viewers are going to know, with Zilla, we've focused on all the mini stuff, the mini halogens, mini UVBs. We launched mini LED plant lights. And one thing we were really missing was a ceramic heat emitter that would use that same type of a socket, that was energy efficient, that was low profile, that was small. So that was the next thing we added. But one thing I wanted to do with it is I didn't want to just launch another heat emitter. And one of the biggest problems I find with heat emitters is you can't tell if it's on.
Right.
You can't tell if it's working. So just for a heads up for anybody that doesn't know, if you temp gun this, it's 750 degrees. So if you were to touch it, you're going to lose your fingertips.
What?
So it's extremely hot. The other thing is, if you can't tell if it's on, when you're looking at your enclosure, you don't know if it's still working.
Right.
And it's not something, maybe it's your night heat, so you're not going to be up looking at it or checking it, and you're not going to know that it's not working. So one thing we did, and this took a lot, so I was looking at my son's coffee cup, and he has this little coffee cup that has Dragon Ball Z on it.
Yeah,
and he puts coffee in it, and it changes color, and I'm like, why can't we do that? So the big difference is coffee doesn't get to 750 degrees.
Right.
So every enamel we worked with burnt off immediately. So we finally found an enamel that would actually change color when it's hot and wouldn't burn off. And over long-term testing, we were able to prove that it wouldn't burn off and stop working. So right here, you've got this bright neon yellow ceramic heat emitter, and this is cold. And this one is the one that's been on for a little bit. It's still not totally heated up, but you can see that dark, like warm orange color. And it's not a ton, but it's enough to visually see that it's working versus the standard color.
Absolutely.
And these have already launched, they're already out there, so it's another way for us to add night heat to our enclosures using the mini, like our Pro Sol fixtures, our dual fixtures, if you wanted that night heat without the red light.
All right, so somebody out there is going to ask the question, why do you need a heat emitter that gets to 750 degrees?
So heat emitters work by just radiating heat down. They're not really projecting it, they just kind of radiate heat. So the way ceramic heat emitters work is to increase the heat substantially so that a little bit of heat gets down, because most of it isn't going to be directed down like your light fixtures do. So that's why they get so hot.
So desert animals like Uromastyx that need, 120 degree hot spot, this is going to provide that for them.
So this won't get it that hot, but what it is going to do is it's going to provide more ancillary heat or nighttime heat, ambient heat. So if you have, so most of the reptiles we keep in captivity are from tropical areas where even at night, it doesn't get down to 72.
Right.
Our houses are 68. So you still need to keep them near 75 to 78 degrees. So this is going to help increase that. Or if you want to spread out your heat gradient in your enclosure and you need to raise the general temperature, this would be a good way to raise that temperature without adding a ton more lights.
All right, so this is a new form of thermostat.
Yeah, so we've had temperature controllers out for a long time, but they've been the dial old type one.
Right.
And it was really time for a facelift. So we kind of went back and looked at them and we upgraded them to a digital type version. So it comes with a little hanger on the back. You can hang this near your tank. You've got the Zilla logo, which looks awesome, and this is gonna set your temperature for your heat pads, for your radiant heat panels, your heat emitters, things like that. You can put it on lighting if you wanted to, but what you end up getting is lights that turn on and off constantly all day.
Right.
So it's an on-off type thermostat, not a proportional thermostat, but what it does is basically it's gonna turn your your heating element on, and then as your temperature raises, it's gonna go a degree past where your set point is and then turn off, and then it's going to cool down and go a degree under your set point, turn back on, and it's going to do that on and off all day, which is going to help through your bedding and things like that. Your animal's not going to see that fluctuation, and it'll help hold that temperature you need.
So here are some of the new and innovative products that Zilla is coming out with, but they are not available to the public yet. And when will they be?
So the ceramic heat emitter is out now, but the rest of these you'll start to see in stores probably around April or May.
All right, so a couple of months wait for these innovative products from Zilla, but rattlers, wait until you see how these are tested in the lab.
So since the last time you were here, the entire lab has been completely remodeled. We redid the floors, we sectioned off some areas in order to help us work better and manage the areas a little bit better. So what you're gonna see in the lab is just a new look to how it was from the last time you saw it.
Fantastic. All right, so I recognize the lab from in this room, but there's a whole new lab over here that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, so we split it up into 2 different rooms, and what that's allowing us to do is the animals in this room can handle warmer temperatures, and we can control these temperatures different for the different types of animals. So in this room that we call the tropical room, you'll see animals that are colder. So more amphibians, more New Caledonian type geckos, cresteds, leeches, chahua, and then just some other rare amphibians and animals that just need it colder and can't handle a spike in temperature. So this room is going to have a ton of different species in it, but we can kind of look at some of the cool ones. Some of these are kind of common, something that people have seen before. Other ones are less common, but these are a cool species to see all the time.
Frogs.
Vietnamese mossy frogs, and these are in super cold water. We keep these guys in the cold room because they like nice cold temperatures. The water is going to be a lot cooler in here. He's going to take off, so there he goes. Down here we have another really cool frog. These are Costa Rican or crowned tree frogs.
Oh, yes.
Anatheca spinosa.
This is one of those tree frogs I found in Costa Rica, and I just love these guys.
So what's really awesome about these is when you look at the spines on the top of their heads, those are actually bony protrusions off their skull.
Right.
So there's spines coming off their skull that are coated with flesh and skin, and it keeps predators from trying to bite them, because the second they do, that giant spike goes through their skin and into the predator's mouth.
Right.
So down here in our brand new bull front terrarium, we've got something really neat, and you guys can check these out right here. These are monkey anoles, which is not something you see very often in captivity, and we're working on getting these animals nice and healthy and hydrated, and hoping to be able to see if we can add to the collective knowledge of husbandry on keeping these guys doing well in captivity, and hopefully be able to reproduce them.
These are awesome.
It's just neat to be able to work with stuff that people don't see very often, and try and be at the beginning of working together as a community to try and help figure out how to better take care of these animals and be able to reproduce them in captivity, so less need to be pulled from the wild, or with things like chytrid fungus out there, we could in a flash lose these animals.
Absolutely we could. So I see you have a lot of New Caledonia stuff. You have the chahuas and the chameleon geckos, which not a lot of people know about what these are, but you have the leeches and the cresties. And so you have these really popular pets to, you know, develop new kinds of food and to develop new kinds of ways of keeping them. And that's really what the lab is all about.
Right, and that's one thing I like to point out as a very big difference is that we call it a lab, it's a husbandry lab. We don't do any invasive testing on the animals. It's all, and those guys are going to keep
right. He's giving you the sound of approval there.
Right, but all of this stuff is testing like the decor over time. How does it last? So things like this piece of vertical decor that was launched last year. Over time, how does this work? How does it get beat up? How does it work with poop on it? You know, does it waste the paint? Does it break apart? Does it start to break down over time? Is anything we need to do on the next generation of these to make them better, to make them stronger? And that's what we're always testing. We're always using our stuff over long periods of time and letting the animals beat them up and scratch them and just use them to make sure that we can always guarantee that these are good products that are going to last and aren't going to affect your animal in a negative way.
Fantastic, and he agrees with you down there.
Yeah, so those are the yellow-spotted climbing toads. That male is incredibly loud.
That is too funny.
And he's got his lady up in the back corner. She's hiding in the back, nice and dark.
All right, so these are the chameleon geckos. These are from New Caledonia, and not a lot of people know what these geckos are, and it's so cool that, you know, Zilla is working with common herps and really rare herps in the development of all of your products.
Well, the big thing is you got to remember that we're trying to make sure we have products for entry-level keepers to make them successful, but we also want to make sure that we're covering everyone, that everybody is able to use our products, from the new beginning keeper with his first leopard gecko to someone who breeds hundreds and thousands of animals.
Right. All right, so this is the new cooler room for the Reptile Lab. Let's go in and see the changes that have happened with the lab that, you know, we've seen in other videos, which is right in here. So this is now called the desert room.
Now, it's not desert, there's tons of tropical animals in here, but really it's just the warmer room. Again, with the colder room being animals that need cooler temps, this is all the stuff that can handle warmer temperatures.
Let's check it out. So it is a little bit warmer in here, and hey, there's a Billy in here.
How's it going?
Good, how you doing, brother?
Very, very good, man.
Good to see you. So, well, while you're here, you know, a lot of people have seen your video on the channel, and I don't know if a lot of people even know that you work here for Zilla.
Yes.
And so while we've got you here,
well,
we're going to ask that question. Did you get any of your reptiles back?
I just one. There was that update in that last video where I got my bearded dragon,
right?
But I haven't heard anything ever since. So I appreciate it. I still get people coming up to me at shows that have recognized me from the video. I appreciate everyone's support. I still haven't heard a single thing.
That is terrible.
But thanks to Ryan, I work with the Madison Area Herpetological Society, and then I'm the assistant lab tech here at Zilla.
Fantastic. So last time I was here, of course, you had the Borneo earless monitors, which are my monitors, right?
Oh, yeah.
I just keep them here.
Yeah, we just hold on to them.
That's fine. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you housing them. Of course, anytime. You know, when I want them back, I'll let you know. But what else is new and interesting in here from the last time I was here?
There's a bunch of really cool stuff. We're kind of always rotating things. It really depends on what we're doing, but the whole general point of this room and the other one is to have a variety. Have omnivore, piscivore, which are fish eaters, aquatic animals, terrestrial, arboreal, snakes, lizards, geckos, all of it. And have a little bit of everything. Things that need high UV or no UV. So that we can kind of look at what the products we're developing and see which animal would be best to give it a go and try and break it up or beat it up, and or see how the diets work with those animals and how they grow.
Sure.
So we got a little bit of everything in here. Some of the cool new stuff. We've got these guys up here. This is a Tenosaura defensor, a little tiny iguanid, which are from Mexico. Really, really cool species, but that's a full-grown male. So that is a tiny, tiny, tiny little iguanid. So if you're somebody who really likes the iguanas and spiny tails and things like that, but doesn't have the room for a 6 by 4 by 8 foot enclosure, these are a really awesome alternative to that. These are another one that were a gift to us here, which is just the coolest thing ever. I never thought I'd even see them.
Yeah. I've seen plenty of these in the wild in Australia.
Yeah, haha, good, Dave. Next time you take me.
We're going in the spring. Come with.
So these guys are never going to let me grab them because they're geckos and they're quick.
Yeah.
But this is Phylloris amnicolae, or also known as the broadleaf-tailed gecko. And this is an Australian species of gecko. That's one of the leaf-tails from Australia. So it's kind of cool, that divergent evolution between the Madagascar leaf-tails and these guys.
Absolutely.
And they're even a little different. Their tails are a lot meatier than like the Europlatus out of Madagascar. They're very laterally compressed, and they have super long legs and long toes.
And for being one in a domestic situation, that one doesn't have a regen tail.
Yeah, so these guys have even their regenerated tails are super cool.
Right.
But it's kind of cool to have a pair of them that still have their tails. Now these guys are young, they're gonna get a little bit bigger than this, but it's just a really unique and amazing species to be able to work with.
Fantastic. So I see a Chinese crocodile lizard, which are one of my favorite lizards.
Yeah, these guys are fantastic. And it's such a cool animal, now also being endangered. I believe they went CITES 1 this year.
I think they did, actually, yeah.
Which means that you can't get them into the country anymore. So captive breeding efforts are going to be a little bit pushed back by that because we can't get new blood, new lineage. Especially with an animal that doesn't have a lot of them in captivity in the first place, it can be kind of detrimental. But they are protected in the wild as long as there's actually programs happening to protect them. But these guys are really unique. It's kind of like a little tiny alligator with Godzilla's face.
Right.
And they're extremely strong jaws. It sucks to get bit by them when they're crabby.
Well, yeah, these guys are snail eaters like their cousins in the Amazon, and those jaws they're pit bull jaws. They're made to crush snails and then get at that meaty center.
And my knuckle.
And Bill's knuckle.
And Bill's meaty center.
All right, so I see you have Solomon Island tree boas, and before I turned this camera on, you said that she was gravid.
Yeah, so this is really cool. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we actually got a litter of babies. So I reached out to a whole bunch of guys that breed Candoya, and I was like, how do you get these going? How do you get them eating? Because they can be frog or lizard specialists as babies. And I sent a bunch of messages to these guys, and then my phone started blowing up, and they're like, you from a wild-caught female, right? I'm like, no, these are long-term captives. We bred them. And apparently, we may have been one of the first people in the Earth. We maybe have been the first people in the United States to do that.
Wow.
And now this is her second round. I know there's a couple people I'm pretty sure have bred them, but I couldn't get a definite answer. So from not being a wild-caught female, but actually being a long-term captive bred, and this is our female. She's nice and gravid, so we kind of let her be for now. But we're expecting babies within the next couple weeks. And of course, they are frog eaters when they come out.
Oh, of course they are.
And she's gonna give birth in the winter in Wisconsin. So not the best time for us to get frogs, but
yeah,
we're gonna try a couple new things this year. One cool thing is their babies come out huge for Candoya.
They do. Usually
Candoya are tiny. These guys are a good 9 inches to a foot long, which is a little bit nicer to start with something that's a little girthier, especially when you gotta switch it from frogs to rodents or lizards to rodents.
Right.
So that'll be another interesting one to try and do, but it's been really cool to work with these. And one thing for anybody that wants to breed Candoya that we found with these is the key to breeding them is competition. So we actually have 2 males that we rotate. Those guys are over here. So we've got these 2 males, the red one and a black one, and we actually rotate them in with the female. So what happens is when the female's ready to breed, we take both males and put them in there, and then we make them combat each other for the attention of the female.
Interesting.
And after about 24 to 48 hours, one of the males will be cuddling with the female and the other one will be on the ground. And every week we pull them out, put them back in their own cages to feed them, give them the weekends to cool off and relax, and then we make them combat again the next week on Monday. And we do that every week until she goes through her ovulation and we know she's nice and gravid. And then we let them be, and then about 9 months later, she gives us babies.
And how many babies do you usually do? Well, has she given a litter?
The last one, I believe, was 6. So 6 or 7 babies is what we got out of the last one.
Not too bad.
For gecko people, for lizard people, you go to the Asian market, and for $3 you get a bag of these frozen silkworm pupae, and it feeds everything for weeks. Everything I have takes these off of the tongs. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, it helps out so much. So let's try and find somebody that'll eat these.
Ryan?
No, I'm good.
No, all right.
Would you like to try one?
Yeah, okay.
Part of my job here at the lab is not only to clean poop and make sure the cages are clean, but make sure the animals are healthy. And so every week, every animal gets visually inspected. And so when I come in the morning, I kind of go through and do all the water dishes, spot clean when I can. And then every rack gets kind of a more detailed focus. So I will check UV, check temperatures, visually inspect the animals, making sure that they're looking okay. And then if something looks a little off for whatever reason, they'll get on like a medicine regimen. We have a vet that we work with pretty regularly that sees the animals as well. So it's not like I'm doing the vet.
Right.
We have a vet that comes in that sees the animals, consults, and then we, I just follow through with whatever the recommendations are from the vet. We kind of like to focus on bugs as the primary food source for monitors.
Yeah.
Well, all these monitors are insectivores. People eat way too much meat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they get overweight on pinkies.
Right.
I guess we haven't been really worried about obesity, but I always am kind of concerned about obesity in reptiles in captivity. We tend to overfeed our animals in captivity. A lot of times with monitor lizards, Pac-Man frogs, we all tend to go feed them mice and rats, which they'll eat, but they're not the healthier option.
Right.
So we try to stay with insects as best as possible. Getting like the frozen locusts and the frozen pupae are good options, but so we were kind of monitoring their weight to make sure that they could go in the cage together, and we just paired them up a few weeks ago. So we're kind of keeping our eye out for breeding behavior, but we want to distinguish breeding behavior from like any kind of aggression.
are my monitor lizards, the Borneo earless monitors. That are mine.
Obviously yours.
Right.
But now that I know that they're yours, we're not going to really work that hard to breed them.
Oh.
No, we actually, this is the only thing this year that kind of killed me inside a little bit. So for everybody asking about these guys and how they're doing amazing. They eat fantastic. They're one of the coolest animals you can have in captivity and never actually see. They basically spend all their time underwater and under the dirt. But we've been trying to breed them. 3 years ago, we got infertile eggs, which was a huge high and a huge low really quick. And then while we were redoing the lab, we had seen them breed a few times, and I expected we were going to see eggs from her. So we were trying to keep an eye on her, but while she was in the back and they were redoing the flooring and things in here, she laid eggs. And we didn't know that she did. So when we moved the enclosures back in, I had Bill just get everybody back in here, get heat on them, get them set up and going, and then go through and clean the cages. And when he went through and cleaned this, water had sloshed in there and there were eggs. And so we lost them. They were fertile eggs that drowned because of when we were moving them in that move. So we know they're breeding. We know they're a pair. Another year.
Another year.
Next year. So this is our male.
They are just as beautiful as I remember them.
So these are the Borneo earless monitors, Lanthanotus borneensis. It's another monotypic genus where this is the only species left alive in this genus.
Right. All right, so here's the female.
Yep, and she's a little bit deflated because she just got rid of a whole bunch of eggs. Just an amazing animal, and you can see between the female and the male there's sexual dimorphism in the size of their heads, and the size of their bodies as well. Males are a lot bigger. They have big, broad heads. And what's crazy about these guys too, in the wild they live basically in streams. They eat frogs and fish and worms. But they have extremely sharp teeth and an anticoagulant in their saliva. So for having such an aggressive bite for something that eats worms. It's kind of weird.
Right.
But it makes it so that when we handle them, we have to be really careful.
Absolutely.
And the unfortunate thing with them is they're honestly probably going to be extinct within a decade. All of the land and areas they live in are being turned into palm oil farms. So just as a PSA to everybody, anybody who, if you're buying your food at the grocery store, keep an eye on stuff that has palm oil. Make sure it's ethically sourced palm oil, because if it's not, that's what's causing all the orangutans and guys like these that are going to eventually be extinct because they have no habitat left.
Well, I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
Stop buying products that use palm oil, frankly, altogether.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the best way we're going to get those companies to stop doing that, is by no longer purchasing their product until they change.
Absolutely. The world does not need palm oil. It's a cheap sweetener. And it's killing these guys' habitat for cheap sweetener.
Yeah, and for how long these guys have been around, it would be a shame to lose them.
Absolutely.
All right, Rattlers, well, thank you for tuning in. It was awesome having Dave come out.
And thanks for checking out the lab. So make sure to check out all the cool things coming out with Zilla.
And until the next reptile adventure, love the planet, feed your reptile obsession, and rattle on.